Welcome to Heartland Darkland. I'm Casie.
And I'm Shannon.
Hey,
Hey,
Dark
Dark
Heart.
Hearts.
Oh, we were
Welcome.
almost in
I
sync.
know, it's always that little bit of a delay, and occasionally it's together, but tonight's not one of those nights, so
No, but
yeah.
tonight is a special night for us. Tonight's gonna be our first night where we actually have a guest on the show. I know we've talked about doing this before, but it is actually happening now. But before we kind of go into that, we kind of want to give you guys a little intro about what's coming up. So by the time this episode comes out, Shannon will have done a case about Lizzie Borden. And I'm sure some of you will
Spoiler
probably,
alert.
yes, if you listen to these backwards, maybe go back and listen to the episode prior. But it's not a Heartland case, but it's our podcast and we do what we want. And this time we specifically had a reason for that because
Yeah.
we had the Shelterbelt Theatre, which is a local nonprofit theater, reached out to us about the fact that they were putting on Lizzie the musical.
Who'd have thought? Who'd have thunk? I had no idea that there was a
I
musical, so I think
I
that's
didn't either.
amazing. I'm
Yes.
stoked. Yeah.
Yes. So we were very excited about that. I personally I've lived in Omaha for a while now, but I'm not originally from Omaha. So I hadn't been aware of the Shelterbelt Theater, and they are a local nonprofit theater that has been helping local playwrights and actors get a start since 1993, which I think is absolutely amazing as I looked into
Yeah.
them. They're all about community and a safe and healthy environment to help writers, actors, playwrights, and anyone who has an interest in theater to grow. And not only do they want to help artists grow, but they want to make theater accessible to everyone. So, like, when I was looking into Lizzie, the musical, and like showtimes and ticket prices, I saw that they actually have 3 different tiers of what you can pay. They have, the patron tier. So, for those who are a little bit more financially secure, have that extra money to kind of help pay it forward. Or that, and then, sorry, that's the pay it forward tier. And then there's the patron tier, which is $35, and then the pay what you can, which I think is so great because there have been shows that have come to Omaha that I'm like, oh, that would be so cool to see. And then I look at tickets and I'm like, to spend that much to sit in a nosebleed,
No doubt.
just
Well, and it
seems a little
sucks
too
because
much.
the arts, I feel like, don't get recognized as much as they should. And I'm like, I'm a show choir nerd, a theater nerd, all the things from growing
I
up. I have
did all the
family in
nerdy
it.
things
Yeah.
in school. I did speech team. I did
Yeah,
one acts,
same.
the musical. I
Yeah.
loved that stuff. And so I still really enjoy those things. So I think that's really cool that they do that. And unfortunately, in 2018, they were forced to close their doors, and it took 6 years, but they finally found a new home that's at 45th and Nicholas. And this is going to be their first show at this new location. So like I said, it's Lizzie the musical about Lizzie Borden. And, we just feel so lucky that they've reached out to us. They asked us to, if we had any interest in this, they thought about us and our listeners, this being something that they would enjoy. And we obviously jumped on the chance. And so
Yeah.
we're excited that we get to talk to the director of the show, Daena Schweiger, tonight about this. And, real quick before we bring her on, I just wanted to give the description that they have for Lizzie the musical. It's described as rage, sex, betrayal, murder. Lizzie is American mythology set to a blistering rock score. And what I looked up from the clips I saw of this, I can't wait. I think this looks absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So
It's fun. My 11-year-old daughter, I was telling her about it. She's like, "Can I go?" And I said, "I don't know. I'll find out tonight if this is appropriate for you."
so let's
don't know. No? Okay, hard pass.
So Daena,
Okay.
welcome. Thank you so
Yay.
much for being on with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm just so excited about this. So yeah,
Yeah, we're so excited. I mean, all of it. We're like we said, we love the theater, the arts, and all of that. So, and then you tie it in with something true crime that we also love. It's like, boom, what are we waiting for? When can we come?
right? Yeah, and it's the perfect show for the Shelterbelt, even though it's not like a locally written script. And I'll tell you why. One of the things that you mentioned that we do local scripts and we do one of our most popular shows that we would do is called Shelter Skelter, and we did it during Halloween every year, and they were one acts,
Okay.
and sometimes they were creepy, and sometimes they were funny, and it became like a cult classic, and everybody loved it. And so, one of the very first things when we said we were coming back online after, being out of a home was, "Are you doing Shelter Skelter?" And we're like, "We are, but not this year." And that's because
Cool.
we have to get the scripts, coming back on and asking for scripts and things like that. And so when we were trying to figure out, well, what can we do around Halloween? A friend of mine who went to school in Dartmouth, she had reached out to me the previous summer and we were talking about theater projects. And I said that I was between theaters. I used to work for Snap Productions, which was the sister theater with Shelterbelt for quite a while. And we had, the theaters had gone their own separate ways and I wasn't really on a board. And so I said, I want to do some more theater that focuses on female voices because there are a lot of really powerful females in town. And they just don't, most plays and musicals are written by men. So it's for men, right? So she said, "Well, you know about Lizzie, don't you?" And I'm like, "No, I don't know about Lizzie." And she's like, "Oh, I directed at Dartmouth." And so she sent me the link to Spotify and I listened to it and I fell in love. And I said, "Well, I got to do it somewhere." So when I started with the Shelterbelt and we were talking about the season, I said, "Well, if we're not going to do Shelter Skelter, this show would be perfect."
Yeah. Awesome.
I love it. I'm excited for it. I think it sounds so good. So kind of before we get a little bit more into Lizzie and the show, tell us about how you got involved with the Shelter Belt. Did you keep in contact? I'm assuming, were you with them prior to them closing in 2018 as well?
My first experience with Shelterbelt was actually Shelter Skelter. I had graduated college in 1991 and Omaha's my home, so this is where I was from. So I moved back here. And back in the day, the Omaha World Herald used to have an entertainment section. And they would post, besides putting movies in there, they would post audition notices or other kinds of notices for theaters. And Shelterbelt had put out a call for playwrights for Shelter Skelter. And I'm a big horror film fan and true crime fan myself. And so I actually had adapted I adapted like a short story out of an Alfred Hitchcock book. And
Awesome.
then I had a this is an old thing, but a Reader's Digest paranormal book. And there was they had like short stories in there. And one was about a chair over in England that when people sat in it, it was in a bar. And when people sat in it, then they died, like, like they get in car accidents or they'd get murdered or things like that. And so they eventually took the chair out of the bar and they put it in the basement and somebody bumped into it and knocked the chair down and then they were hit by a car when they left. I mean, it was just
Oh my
creepy, right?
goodness.
So I had adapted these stories and that's how I got involved in the Shelterbelt.
Okay.
And then so that kind of expanded my writing and then eventually directing and things like that. And then I served as the artistic director from 2004 until 2006. And then hooked up with the sister theater with Snap Productions. And then we almost found a space. The space that we had was on 33rd and California Street. If anybody knows where California Taco is, we were just right there on the corner, a couple of doors down. And we lost the space when the owner sold the building. So we thought we had found a space. We lost that space the day before we got the lease.
Oh.
COVID happened. So we were lucky that we didn't sign the lease because we wouldn't have
That was
been
a
able to
blessing
probably
in
afford it
disguise. Yeah.
because of COVID. And then it became the journey of finding a space.
Well, I'm so glad that you guys did find another space. Like I said, I am very excited for this. And so you have kind of told us about that, which I also saw. You so I looked at your LinkedIn and stuff. So you do audiobook narration and stuff too, and you have a podcast.
I do. Yeah.
You
So
just do it all. That's amazing. I want to be you when I grow up.
so that's really cool. Because I was looking, so you interview like other people in theater around Omaha, correct?
Yeah, the podcast is called Thank You Five, and it actually came around during COVID, and my thought process was, I'd be curious to know how you all came together to come up with Heartland, with Heartland Darkland, I always used to like pepper people with questions. Like if I go to cast parties and things like that, and you get to know people, or, in college, we'd have cast parties and different casts get together, and you're like, oh, well, oh, okay, you're in this show. And how did you get involved in theater and things like that? So when I was trying to fill a creative, niche during COVID, I thought, oh, well, there are a lot of theater people in town that I've worked with. I have no idea how they even got involved. So that's where that came from. So yeah, so I interview different writers, directors, actors, any kind of creative, playwrights.
That's super cool. I love that unique twist to it, because that's not like something you hear about. I mean, we know there's a million true crime podcasts out there, but like that's something new and different. I love that.
Well, and I love that you guys focus a lot, on Nebraska. I mean, I was just listening a little bit before we came on air to the story about Norfolk, and what happened there. And I sat there and I went, oh yeah, I remember when that happened. So yeah, it's nice to have a podcast that focuses on Nebraska and the heartland around, around it and stuff. Because people don't know, and it's fun, but you always hear about the national things. You're like,
Oh, yeah.
oh no, it never happens. And then, years ago, I had a relative that lived in Lyons, Nebraska, and the sheriff up there like killed his girlfriend. And then that ended up on a couple of things. I'm like, yeah, things like that do happen in Nebraska too.
I know. We're not that Nebraska nice like everyone thinks. I'm like,
not always.
Right.
It's wild. I mean, my hometown, it's like have been so many horrible murders, and it's like, what? Like, yeah, I'm just a small town Nebraska girl, but we like have experienced a lot of these things, and it's like, I don't know why no one ever hears about it. They just think murders only happen on the coast. It's like, well, come to the Midwest. We have porn and murder.
Everyone.
Well, and that is kind of like, we were kind of the same way. Like we had worked together prior and stuff, and we kind of realized we were both into true crime, and we'd send each other stuff all the time. And then it is one of those things where it's like, people know about BTK, sure, but some of those big ones, but people don't really know about all the other stuff. That it does kind of get lost in the shuffle of things, and it is just those, big city ones. And I mean, every now and then you get, like podcasts like Small Town Murder will cover, some of them and everything. But that's where we were like, there's so much more here to the Midwest than people realize. And that's why we were like, we want to focus on the Midwest specifically, the Heartland area. And we try not to cover, those big ones. Like we probably won't ever cover BTK because there are so many out there. We want to cover the lesser known ones. And that's where, with the Norfolk one again, it was one that there wasn't a ton of information, but sometimes you don't want those people to be forgotten either. It's not, I know sometimes people think it's just like, oh, you're into true crime. They think less. They think that you're into this like morbid curiosity. And it's like a lot of times, like, one, there is a part of me that thinks the more I know about it, the less likely it is to happen to me, however logical that is or not. But then there's that other part is like, well, it's not so much about the perpetrators and who did it, but like their victims and remembering them. And that's why we try to focus on too, like, this is who they were, and this is what they've left behind, more so than just, and we try not to get too graphic with things because, I mean, personally, like, if you want to know the nitty gritty details, you could find them. But so yeah, that's kind of where we were at with that too. That same thing. If it's like, we like to talk about this, and we were like, well, let's talk about it together and record it and see if other people decide they want to listen sometimes too.
Yeah.
Well, or like, kudos to you guys for doing it. You do it every week,
I know, which
and
is,
I'm like, that's, and I don't know how much time you guys spend on editing if you do, but I mean, it's a commitment. It's a commitment.
It's a
So
long
kudos to you
process from
guys.
the beginning to the end, and when we first started and we were like, well, let's commit to at least once a week. And then, we're like, okay, this is not even our job. Like, this is a hobby. And so then we're like, okay, we got to give ourselves some grace here because it was a lot. And I mean, we've kind of learned from that. When we feel like we're overwhelmed, just take a break. It's a week off. Like, it's our podcast. We can do what we want, right?
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, like, it helps because Casie and I will take turns each week on who does the research and tells the story. So then it kind of gives you a break, the other week. So I think we've kind of got it down to a good rhythm and stuff now where it is good. And I don't even think we didn't really know how long we would be doing this, but I think I can speak for both of us when we were both a little surprised it's still going. And
I mean, yeah.
I mean, I'm glad. And I thought, we're like, at least our moms will listen, if anything, So, I mean, It's good. It's been a lot of fun. So we
It's
love
just learning.
opportunities like this, and
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's just learning, like we learned in the beginning, we definitely put a lot of pressure on ourselves, like, oh, we have to do this every week. And then I think once we gave ourselves the permission to be like, it's okay if we need to take time off. And then we built in breaks and like we took the summer off. And a couple weeks ago, I didn't have internet. We were like, well, we're not going to have a podcast the next week because my internet went out. And you know what? I'm not going to try to stress about trying to get other things done around it and stuff. So yeah, that went a long way into it. Um, so that's awesome. I love that, you're focused on the theater and like the people who too who are local. Like we very much like to support our local, even when it isn't necessarily within, I feel like you just gotta support the local. Omaha's
Yeah.
such a big little town, or
Yeah.
what do they call it? A little big town.
Either way, yeah.
That it's nice. So, I mean, with that, tell us about, the kind of, we know a little bit now about Lizzie. It's definitely, it's just, correct me if I'm wrong, it's just for female actors.
Yep,
It's like
it
a
is.
four-person.
It's 4
Okay.
women. It's a 6-piece band, 6-piece live band, keyboard, a couple of guitars, bass, cello, drums. So yeah, it's
So fun.
and it will be we're having a music rehearsal on Sunday with the band, and I just can't wait. There is nothing like it. I mean, it's one thing to hear these incredible voices when they're just playing with the music directors playing piano, but the first time you get the rest of the band in there, it just sends goosebumps
Oh,
through
yeah.
you. So, and it'll be interesting because this is our first musical in the space, so there will be some challenges, I'm sure, and things that will need to be worked on. But yeah, we're looking forward to it. I was incredibly blessed to have over 30 female identifying actors come in to audition, and
Wow.
I mean, and we could have cast the show many a time over, and there were, we had to cut it down to, I think it was about 18 that we called back, and then from there we pared it down to 4, and
Wow.
yeah, yeah,
Competitive out there.
I
Yeah.
can't wait. I can't wait for people to hear these voices. They're just amazing.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about who you have cast and a little bit about them?
Sure. So, 3 of the 4 actresses I had not worked with before, one I have. So, Michelle Collette Ingle is our Lizzie Borden. She is actually from Lincoln, and
Oh,
so
cool.
she is dedicated. She drives up from Lincoln every day,
Oh my
Wow.
and
goodness.
our rehearsals go from 6:30 until 10 o'clock, and then she drives back. So that's quite a commitment. And then Allison Wisman, Allison Botkin, excuse me, that I have worked with before. She plays Lizzie's older sister Emma, and then Zoella Sneed plays Alice. Alice is the next door neighbor and a friend of the Bordens, and then Heather Wilhelm rounds out the cast as Bridget, aka Maggie Sullivan. That's kind of an interesting thing. She's the actor, well, not the actor, the I want to say character. I mean, that's who it is, but the real life person,
Right.
Yeah.
Who she's playing.
was a lot of Irish immigrants that were in Fall River back in the 1800s, and they were looked down upon, obviously, and so they never referred to her as Bridget, which is her given name. They always referred to her as Maggie, which was the name of another servant that they had at one time. So there was kind of this
Interesting.
cultural clash there. And as more and more immigrants came in, a lot of just a little bit of back history, a lot of the Irish ended up being policemen. So there was kind of that kind of conflict there when Lizzie was arrested, because she was arrested by, the people that she looked down upon. So there are all these kind of little cultural things that kind of, are in the show just a little bit.
Yeah. So does it follow? I mean, anyone who knows the story, everyone should probably have heard of it at least. Does it follow the storyline, I mean, of what happened, or is a lot of it just kind of fictionalized for entertainment purposes?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
there is, so, I mean, obviously, spoiler alert, the murders happen.
Oh no.
And,
Brand new information.
so it takes, the first part leads, up to that. And then, the second part, involves the trial and things. So
Okay,
the,
cool.
a lot of the dialogue, and there isn't a lot of dialogue in the show. I mean, they call it a musical, but it almost feels like an opera. There's very, very little dialogue in it. And a lot of the dialogue during the courtroom scenes are taken from the actual trial transcripts.
Oh,
Oh,
cool.
wow. That's awesome. See, and that's how, like I said, I don't know how familiar you are if you've seen Six or not, but that's how that one is too. There's very little dialogue. It's all the music, and it is that, like, it has the band with it that, I can't remember all of the instruments, but they have guitars and things like that. And, like, I, like I said, I adored that. That's probably one of my favorite musicals. My sister and my mom got me tickets to go see it last year-ish. I don't know, time's weird. When it was here at the Orpheum.
Okay.
And, so that was one of the first things I was like, I am gonna love Lizzie. I'm like, I can tell from this clip. So I cannot wait to see that completely. And so I had it in front of me and then I lost it. But you guys open, it's that Thursday the
Yep,
11th?
we open
October
October 11th, and go through the 27th. So it's 4 weekends, Thursday through Sunday. And then, although the first weekend we open on a Friday, and the reason why is because we're doing a special show on Halloween.
I love that.
And that's what we used to do with Shelter Skelter too. When we would do that, we'd always close on Halloween and have a big Halloween party. Although we're not having a Halloween party this year because it's like on a Thursday or something. But
yeah.
Why can't it always just be a Friday or a Saturday?
exactly.
I know.
Exactly.
Someday.
No, that's fantastic. I love that. And so that's why, we're gonna make sure this comes out, prior to that, so our listeners are aware. We'll definitely have the Shelterbelt's website linked in our show notes, so people can go directly from there to buy tickets, because that was easy.
I was
like
gonna
I said,
say, tell us how people can get tickets. Can they just show up? I mean, do they
Sure.
need to get
And
tickets?
Casie, you mentioned it earlier, and it is awesome that we do have the ability now to have like different tiered pricing for tickets. Our seating capacity is 72,
Okay.
which is a little bit more than what it was at our old space. Our old space was about 55. And, we were, as we all do, lament ticket prices and going up. And as you mentioned before, there's sometimes you just feel like it's a burden. I have a lot of friends that I like to go see theater, and sometimes the ticket prices are just staggering. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know you that well. No, just joking around. But so our normal ticket prices are $35. That's what it would cost, to help offset the cost of the musical. So if people can afford to pay that, those are our patron ticket prices. And then we have a pay what you can price, because we would much rather have all of the seats filled than to have somebody lament that they couldn't come see Lizzie because they couldn't afford it. So we have like 30% of our tickets, or about 20 seats, every performance that we set aside for pay what you can. So it's basically a free ticket, and then you decide what kind of a donation you would like to give. The third option is a pay it forward option. So if you are financially able and you want to pay it forward so that somebody else can go, that's $70, which is basically the equivalent of 2 tickets. So you're buying one for yourself and you're buying one for somebody else. So it's a great model. And we did one show here in August that was called Democracy Sucks. It was a one-man show, and we had really great houses, and some people utilized the pay what you can, and it was great because we'd rather have the full houses, and theater should be accessible to everybody.
It really should, and I love that. It was like even those small things of like, my kids love I'm not gonna lie, I do too, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and I think it's the Orpheum or the Holland Center is gonna have it with like the act, like playing the movie with the band, like an actual live orchestra, which is so cool. But I was like, okay, to buy at least 3 tickets is kind of pricey. And then it's Thursday night only, and it's late at night, and that's a school night. And I was like, yeah, guys, we'll just watch the movie at home, and I'll play the soundtrack for you for now.
Yeah.
with some of those, but I think that's great. But I mean, speaking of kids, I know we kind of talked about this a little bit beforehand, but just so people know, is this a kid-friendly show? What age? 18 and up?
Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
yeah, I would say so. So I had a theater friend actually that reached out to me and said, my grandkids want to come see it. Grandkids are like 10, 11 years old. They love true crime. They're they're into all this kind of dark stuff. Is it appropriate? And I said, okay, well, I err on the side of being conservative because I don't really have a filter anymore after the number of years I've been in theater. So I'll
Theater,
say,
yeah,
if I were
theater life.
talking to my Catholic friends, this is what I would say. So obviously you have the whole thing about parasite, right? The killing of one's parents. So whether or not, kids of a certain age can handle that. There is some swearing in it, the F-bombs drop, but, the kids hear that.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of a spoiler alert do you want on some of this stuff? Because
You know what? Go for it, because like I said, if people are listening to it backwards, we already told them in the beginning that
Sure.
the episode prior
true.
is about Lizzie Borden.
Yep.
So
So there's a if you go and you do any research on Lizzie, there's like one like little subset of the like true crime community that kind of will follow this thread, and it's kind of been debunked. So I don't know if the writers just stumbled across this and decided to use it, but there's kind of this like incest through line that's in there. And so, for something like that, again, it might go over it might go over a 10-year-old or 11-year-old's head, or it may not. So, that's kind of a touchy, area when when you look at something like that. So
use your
those
best
would be the
judgment.
really,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Said, yeah, like they use your best judgment. I mean, you know your
Exactly.
kid better than anyone, so I guess it depends. Like mine is all about it. I'm like,
Sure.
I don't know. I'll think about that. But
Right. Yeah.
we'll see.
So
We'll be there either way, so we're excited.
yeah, I'm gonna probably be there every night. So
Awesome.
I would love it that I would have to sit in the lobby and not be able to watch my shows so that somebody else has.
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
That's
No,
so cool.
I for sure gonna make sure we make it at least once. And I know I talked to my sister and another friend about it, who I'm sure would love to go as well. My children will not be. My son is so emotional and sensitive that he would not do well with that, and I don't need to give my daughter any ideas because she would be the one to.
That's funny. Yeah, mine is cut from the same cloth as me. She loves all the things and begs me to take her to all the scary movies. And I'm like, I mean, there's a fine line. You're still young enough that we'll just see. But I mean, I grew up going to theater, and that was like our family's favorite thing. Every summer, we always went to the Boulder Dinner Theater in Colorado, and it was like the best thing ever. So it's like, I want her to, experience all that too. So I think we'll see. If not this one, then I'll bring her to something else down the road. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Like I said, that now this theater, it feels so much more accessible,
Yeah.
especially when like you never know with kids how they're gonna feel about a musical or something,
know.
and you're like, if I spent this much money for you to come to the theater, you're gonna sit here and you're gonna like it. I mean, I'm gonna make them sit and like it, but if I have to listen to them complain about it, at least then $35 to listen to them complain is better than like 80 or 90.
Yeah, 35 is so reasonable. I think that's, I mean, for most people and for those that can't afford it, I think that's awesome that you guys offer that, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that just would love to come but can't afford it. So, and I'm glad to hear this theater exists, because I didn't really know anything about it. And now I'm like, this is amazing. Like, we're going to have this on our radar all the time.
Yeah, it really is. It's just a little tiny intimate black box space that's about 23 feet across by about 23 feet, deep and things like that. Now for this show, right behind me is where our band would sit. So there's about 6 feet cut off there. So it's more like a 13-foot space, which you sit there and go, oh my gosh, well, that's people are right on top of you. Yes, kind of in a way, but it still feels spacious enough. I mean, we wouldn't do Hello Dolly in here unless you did like the COVID version and could do no more than 10 people. But even then, it might push it a little bit. So but yeah, it's known for it being an intimate space.
That's awesome. Well, and how long does the show run, to just for people who do want to come?
Yep. So So yeah, and we do have kind of like interesting show times.
Okay.
So we run first weekend is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Next weekend is Thursday through Sunday, and then the third weekend is Thursday through Sunday, and then that tacked on performance on Thursday the 31st. So our show times are 7:00 p.m., which is a little bit earlier, but 7:00 p.m. on Thursdays and Fridays. We do Saturday matinees, so our
Oh,
matinees are at 2:00,
cool.
and then Sunday evenings at 6:00.
I love that. And then, so how long does the show run then? Like for your sit down, is it 2 hours or?
Yeah, it's probably about probably about an hour 45 when you
Okay.
put in an intermission.
Okay.
So there's an
So I think the
intermission. Okay.
second act ran 30 minutes the other day, and the first act is probably an hour, and then you tack on the 15-minute intermission. So
Okay.
it's quick. It's
What
quick.
about parking? I mean, is there, a lot of parking available for people?
This is what's nice. So one of the things when we were in the old space, we were there for 25 years. We, as building codes and things like that changed, we were grandfathered into things. That was part of the reason why we had difficulties finding a space, because there were things that we needed. We needed to have ADA bathrooms, which the old space didn't have. So we're excited about that. The
Yeah.
ability to be able to have those who need ADA assistance. We have space in the theater now, not only in the bathrooms, but in the theater itself. We're doing an ASL interpreted performance of this show.
Wow.
So we're excited about that.
Yeah.
But things we needed, bathrooms, we needed to have sprinkler system parking. So there's a big parking lot on the north end of the building, but we also have a little bit of parking on the east end and the west end. So
Awesome. That is always good
there
to
should
know.
there should be plenty of places to park. So
Okay.
and off-street parking. So that'll be nice.
Yay.
Oh,
That's
that
a
is
nice
very
thing. Yeah.
nice.
I hate with trying to dealing with a parking garage and paying and walking a mile. And so that is amazing.
Yeah, and part of the reason why we decided to go with 7:00 was to maybe, these are business condos that are so we're in the Omar Baking Company building. So it was a former bakery, and they've changed them. They've converted these into business condos. So there's a church here, City Life Church is here, and there's a wedding event, center here, and we're here, and a couple of other things. So we tried to go at 7:00 to kind of stagger when other people are having.
That's
Cool.
amazing. I love
Yeah.
that. That's so nice. Because, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even think about parking. That's something I don't think about until I'm like ready to go somewhere. I'm like, oh, I gotta figure out where to park now.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know.
Nope, we're free parking right in the middle of a neighborhood. We're just off of 40th and Hamilton. So
Perfect. That's great. Cool. And when we do, post this and stuff, we'll put all the information. I think Casie already said that, like in our show notes and everything. And we'll make sure we do, some social posts and stuff about it to help kind of promote that too as it's coming up, because we're excited and we'll definitely come see it. So
oh yeah, we'd love to have you.
yeah,
We'd love to have you.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
for
tell
sure.
everyone. Yeah, I think that's awesome.
It sounds so exciting, and like I said, I think we're both so grateful that you guys even thought about us to chat with. I'm just excited about all the things. I know I've said it so
I
many
know.
times with the musical. The
Yeah.
theater itself sounds just amazing, and what you guys do for the community.
Well, and I have to give a shout out to Jennifer Gill, because she's our board member, and she was the one who reached out to you, and and she talked to me about it. She's like, there's this podcast, she said it's right up your alley because you do podcasts, and Lizzie's right up their alley, and because they do true crime. And I'm like, yeah, it's a match made in heaven. So
is.
it
Yes,
worked out
Well,
very,
bless
very
her
well.
heart. We're glad. We were excited when we got the email. I said, hey, Casie, go check the email. There's something cool in there. She's like, that's amazing. So we
I know.
were excited because we get a lot of like junk email and stuff like that. So I was like, wait a minute, let me reread this. This is awesome.
I was at work and I got the text message. I'm like, great. Are we getting another one of those like
Mm.
spam ones where the people are like, we can help you grow your business? And we're like, no, you can't. It's good. We're
Nah.
fine.
Yeah. Yeah, we're good.
We're doing what we can. But so I think that's great. You kind of touched on this before, but one of the questions I had written down to ask you was, are you into true crime? And you kind of said you were. So is that?
I am. I tell you, people sit there and they say, do you watch, whatever, like Cobra Kai or whatever on Netflix? And I'm like, I watch true crime. I cannot tell you, like, I watch the Murdaugh murders. I
Yeah.
mean, like all of that. I'm like, I am so into all of the true crime stuff. So that's literally what I watch on Netflix, or I'll find stuff on YouTube. And yeah,
You're
I'm
one of our
very,
people
very
then,
much
you know?
into true crime.
Yeah, see, and that's, I won't lie, ever since starting the podcast, it's harder for me to watch it in my free time when it's not research anymore. Just because then I get so inundated with it, and I have to take a little break. But that is still definitely, like, I know, Shannon, you just watched the Mendez brothers one, right?
Oh, yeah.
And there's a part of me that I'm like, I kind of want to watch it, but also, like, I know the story, and that's not a good one, and it's one of those things. But I know that's one thing that my husband even recently was like, did you know the Astro was doing some, like, true crime thing? I was like, I was aware of that, like, last year when it was, like, first coming out.
Yeah.
Yes, I am aware that it is coming. And then, so when I was even telling him, I forget sometimes that he doesn't know true crime much. To me, everyone knows about Lizzie Borden.
I know.
Like, there was a
I
whole
feel like
little
they should.
rhyme and everything,
Yeah.
And so when I was on, was like, hey, it was Friday night. We're going to be doing this. We're interviewing. And he was like, Lizzie, what are you talking? He's like, just tell me
Oh,
what
wow.
time and what are you doing? I said, I'm going to be in our bedroom. No one bother me. 8 p.m. He's like, okay. He's like, I don't know what you're talking. I go, Lizzie Borden. He goes, you say that like I should know who that is. I was like, how do you not?
Wow.
Know that.
I know. Even my mom knew that. And I was shocked by that because I told her about this. And she was like, I said, I don't know if you know, but do you know Lizzie Borden? She's like, oh my gosh, of course I know. Like, how dare I even suggest that? I'm like,
to me, that's
what?
something I remember learning about Lizzie Borden as a child. But I also grew up watching Unsolved Mysteries. So, I
Right.
mean, I guess.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I loved Unsolved Mystery.
Yeah,
Oh,
Unsolved
yes.
Mysteries,
Oh,
America's
yes.
Most Wanted.
All the things.
So I guess my perception is distorted, but to me, everyone should know Lizzie Borden. There was the whole little nursery rhyme that came out. Like, how do you
It's a
not know it?
well-known one. Yeah.
Well, and in some ways, it kind of comes full circle because it was one of the Shelter Skelters, and somebody, local wrote like a piece about Lizzie Borden. And so it kind of came, it wasn't a musical, but it was part of Shelter Skelter. And the actress Daena Schweiger, who played it, just looked just like her. I mean, she had her hair back and and the bun and everything. And it was just like, yeah, that's creepy.
Yeah. A little too creepy. A little too similar, huh?
And that is one. Yeah, so I do forget at times that there are people in the world who don't know some of these things, and my husband is one of them. I'm like, how are we married again? How do you not know this?
Yeah.
Seems pretty basic to know. But I during COVID, I did get him to watch. He got into some of them. We watched I forget the football player, Aaron Hernandez.
Yeah.
And then I was real mad when he watched the Epstein documentary. I came home. I was like, after we were going back into work, and I came home and I was like, did you watch that without me? He was like, yeah. Are you aware of it? I was like, what do you mean, am I aware of it?
Do you know who I am? Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes he'll send me links to things. He's like, have you heard of this? I was like, do you know who you're married to?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
That was like weeks ago. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you, and I know that BTK, and you talked about, did you see the interview that was done years ago in Kansas with his daughter?
Yes. Wild.
That was, I mean, talk about, I felt sorry for her because I'm like, she's sitting there and she's like, I don't know him. She's like,
That's
sorry. It's horrible what he did to those people. But I still love him because he's my dad. And I'm like, how do you reconcile that? I just don't even know.
I don't
can't
know.
imagine.
I know. When I watched that too, I thought like, wow, she's very composed. I mean, considering everything she went through. And yeah, like the man that you love, that raised you to be who you are. Like, I don't even know I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the gal who was with Ted Bundy for all of those years, and had no idea.
Yeah.
It's wild. And it's.
Well, and it just kind of goes to show that, like, not all of those serial killers, like, a lot of times we think, oh, in their home life, they have to, and it's like, no, some of them, they're so good at, they're, whether it's psychopathy or not, they're good at faking it and putting on a whole different front. Although it's so interesting to me too, because you do see people who were neighbors or had interactions with him right before, and they were like, yeah, he was, kind of weird, or he was this or that, because he was like a dog catcher at one point, and a pastor, and some people were like, he was just really rude, or he was really off. And I'm like, so was it just with his family and like really close people that he was like this kind,
Right.
loving person? And then for other people, he didn't feel the need to put that act on, And so I can't imagine. I mean, I just, I hope for her sake she's got a good therapist to help her
Yeah.
work through all of that, because, yeah, that's just it. I mean, to reconcile the man who raised you, who took care of you and loved you, if he was never malicious to you. And I mean, I hate to say, even the people who have abusive parents, they still sometimes have that love for them, because you can't, that's a whole other cycle of things. But if he was good to her the whole time, to reconcile what he did, I can't even imagine how difficult that is.
I know. And it's like you almost like, I'm big on like forgiveness stuff, and it's like you want to forgive him, but like, because how do you live with that, But at the same time, it's like just knowing what they did. I think that's awful. And I think he could have kept going if he wasn't so just selfish and like wanted that fame, I think it could have gone on longer, unfortunately. But I mean, I'm glad it stopped when it did. But yeah, some of those cases like that, there's a whole other sides to it, that it's like, once again, not only his own victims that, he physically killed, but it's like you think about his family and they're all victims too, and it's just awful. But it's
especially
intriguing.
Yeah, well, especially because they're victims doubly so, because when it comes all out, that they were getting so much hate, and I'm sure death threats and things like that, not only is their world upended, but now you have strangers saying horrible things to you and about you.
100%.
What's your favorite episode? What's the true crime one that you've either discovered the most of, or it feels weird to say the one you most enjoyed?
I know. I
because
hate saying like,
crime.
who's your favorite
but I mean,
serial
it's a
killer?
weird thing to say that. But
Yeah.
what's your favorite? What's your favorite?
I know. I actually think about this stuff all the time, and I'm like, I hate that I have a favorite serial killer, but we all do, okay? We do.
I mean, it's so hard for me to like pick, because I'm like, well, like, and within our episodes, like, we cover the Heartland, but I will then a lot of times also cover like the cryptids of the Midwest, because one, that's a nice little break, and I'm weird and I love that stuff, like Bigfoot, all that, the aliens, I love those stuff. So I love to be able to like deep dive into that a bit too, just because it does, like I said, we try to find sometimes we do more positive episodes and stuff as well, but and I know this isn't an older case, I can't say, I think growing up on Unsolved Mysteries is just really what got me into true crime in general. But the case that to this day I cannot let go of, and it isn't that old, but I think we're going on 10 years now, is the Delphi murders. And that is another one that, yeah, it's in the Midwest. There's so much out there, but there's still also so much left undone that I won't probably cover that one, just because there is already so many. Like, there's a podcast dedicated solely to it that I've done. I was like, I can't do that, but that's the one that those girls were so amazing in catching things about their killer that I'm like, how have we not caught him or them yet? And that's the one that has recently kind of really stuck with me. It's not one of the cases we have covered. We have talked about it and stuff, but I think that's just one of those cases that, like, kind of like John Bonet, where you're like, so much was messed up in that case that it's like, there's no reason why we couldn't have had her killer. And I feel like, so it's hard for me. Of our own podcast episodes, though, I'd have to think on that one. That one's hard for me to decide on which of our true crime episodes, is truly one of my favorites. I do like, because time is weird, I liked when we covered women killers, because I feel like those also, like, yeah, you get them sometimes and everything too, but I don't know, a lot of times it's the men, and so sometimes seeing some of these women killers, you're just like, yeah, they, I don't know.
It's
Sometimes
like
I
you
feel
almost want to call him badass, but you're like, no, because you shouldn't be killing, but like that's badass that you
Right.
did it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like
yeah,
that weird, like, I don't want to cross a line,
yeah.
but they're badass.
But
Yeah.
pretty badass.
Like one of the ones I covered that I loved, well, once again, loved is a weird word,
Right.
but yes,
Relative term.
the Carrie Farber case here in Omaha. Oh, why am I drawing? And Liz Guyer, the one where she, killed her and then and pretended to be her and stalked her and stuff. And that one I think is crazy to me. I think that one, and then it's funny because a lot of them ones we've covered that are one of my favorite ones, Jessica O'Grady. That one too has always really bothered me. The girl, the local who the boyfriend like killed her, but they've never actually found her body. But
The one with
Right.
the samurai sword.
yeah. And that was like not far from where I've lived, and just like, oh my gosh. Like that kind of thing, it blows your mind to think that that kind of stuff happens around you,
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think our very first case was probably my favorite, only because the Beaupre case, I don't know if you've been a local, I guess if you've lived in Nebraska for most of your life, then that one was in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. And my dad was actually on the jury of that case. And so I heard stories about it down the road, and there's a lot of weird theories out there about it. And I don't know that, the guy that's serving the time, I don't know that he necessarily did it. And
Right.
it's just an eerie case. Some of those, I think a lot of the unsolved ones just really always are like, just leave you with that eeriness of thinking, how is this not solved, And it just blows my mind to think that people can get away with this stuff and they're just walking around somewhere probably,
Yeah. And it's just right. It's that whole, if you can't, if there's any like shred of a doubt, and then people walk away, or, God forbid something happens and there's, something in the trial and they have to have a mistrial,
Yes.
and
Oh.
things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it's not, I don't want to say it's a favorite, but one that always just kind of sticks with me from Nebraska is the John Jubert case.
Yes.
And I think that was because that happened, when I was in, high school, and, and so, when you've got kids that are, getting taken off of bikes when they're like delivering their newspapers in the
Yeah.
morning, and you just, and just remember parents are like scared to death, and you can't go out and do this, you can't go out and do that, and
I
you find out
know.
that he also did it when he was in Maine, and, and it's
Yep.
just, he was down there at Offutt, and
It's-
yeah.
And that
Especially
is
when it's
one we did
kids
cover
involved.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That one and the murders down in Rulo, Nebraska is
yeah.
another one. So,
That's
every now and then when, I go down to Kansas City, I drive past Rulo and I'm like, oh, just keep driving.
Yeah. Just gives you goosebumps knowing that stuff happened there.
Well, and
Yeah, for sure.
it was a weird coincidence. I covered the Rulo, Nebraska case, which is something to me that like it's weird to me that so many people, even in Nebraska, don't know about that. But my husband had a job out there, and it was on a farmhouse. I was like, "Is it this farmhouse? Be careful!" Like
Yeah,
he was
don't
like,
talk to anybody.
I was like,
Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
I was like, I was like, be careful because one of the farms there is still up, I'm pretty sure, and people died there very, very horrifically. He's like, why are you telling me that as I'm driving there? I was like, well, you need to know this. It happened in the 80s, but you still need to be aware.
Yeah.
That one is truly horrific. And that one was hard for me too to cover because I watched some stuff with the son of the leader, and it's so hard because he was young and he was abused and he was brainwashed into this, and he is remorseful, but then you still have that thing of like, you still did some very horrible things, and it's one of those things that you'll learn quickly when doing this stuff that the world is not black and white. It's like he was also abused and brainwashed and led into this, and that's so difficult. And I'm like, on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, he's just as much a victim, and he was forced to do some horrible things, and but then it's at the same time you're like, God, but the victims' families to know that they're out, it's just, it's like the Sylvia Likens case where her daughters got out, and actually was a teacher. One of her daughters ended up being a teacher in Iowa, and someone finally was like, hey, or maybe not a teacher, but she worked in a school with kids, and people were like, she had changed her name, and people found out who she was, and I'm like, no. So at least there's that. But in that case, though, that one was hard too, because you're just like,
yeah, it's hard to justify those things, but it's like when they've had an rough upbringing, it's easier to justify it. But still, there's people who have those kind of upbringings and they turn out fine. So
yeah, and that's kind of circling back for a second to the musical, right? It's there's like I said, this kind of through line that there was this abuse by the parents, of Lizzie and Emma, and it almost feels like it's like there's this justification to the murders because of that,
right.
so it's a very interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah, the abuse excuse is like real though, like I just finished watching the Monsters, the Menendez brothers case, and it's the same thing. It's like, did they deserve to die? I mean, probably not, but if someone did that to me, I'd probably shoot them too. So
right, exactly. We're actually doing a talk back, an educational talk back after the performance on the 18th, and we're bringing in a couple of people to talk about childhood trauma and how that affects people.
That's
so we
cool.
thought that'd be kind of an interesting talk back to have.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's a whole nother level of things. That's awesome.
I can't. That's the one of those things with with, like I said, with the true crime, is that you do look at those things sometimes and you're like, God, you went through some shit. And I don't know, I'm a little bit of I don't know, sometimes I'm like, well, if the only person you're harming is your abuser, I can't necessarily be mad about that. But it's when you go on and you hurt innocent people,
right,
and you then continue that cycle, like, maybe it's not right, but I'm like, vigilante justice sometimes is the only way.
Dexter did it, and he just, he got rid of some shitty people, and it worked out fine. So,
yeah,
we're not telling you people to kill people that are mean to you and all the things, but
no.
Okay, that took a weird turn. So,
I mean, one of the things we say a lot is. I'm like, well, one of the things we say a lot is like, we'll sit there and critique like the killers and stuff who get caught. And I'm like, why would you do it like this? You should do it like this and that. Like, we're not telling you how to get away with murder, but like, why would you do it like that?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you be a little smarter?
We could easily get away with murder because we know, right? So,
except now it's unrecorded. Things. So
and now they know. So don't worry.
Now we're on a bunch of like do not fly lists.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Show up, surprise, you can't fly. Man, we could talk about true crime and all the things, I think, forever. Like,
we probably could.
You're our people.
You've already had such a long day, so we don't want to keep you too much. But is there anything that we haven't gone over that you would like to talk about to share?
No, I think, again, I just think it's a fun show. All different kinds of music in it. We've got some more lyrical music in it. We've got stuff that ranges. It feels like you're in a punk rock concert, and I can't say enough about my actors. They're just absolutely incredible powerhouse voices, and it's very compelling, and I think people are going to just absolutely love it.
Awesome.
Well, we are very excited. Not that we haven't said that a million times, but thank you again so much for coming on and doing this and chatting with us about this. We are very excited about it. I'm sure a lot of our listeners will be very excited about it as well. Like I said, we will have everything linked in our show notes for people who want to go in and purchase their tickets that way as well. We'll share the stuff on our social media too. So just a reminder to our listeners, it is October 11th through the
27th.
27th. I was about to say the 21st. I'm like, that's not right.
Yep.
The 27th.
And then the one on Halloween.
And the Halloween one. Yes.
Cool.
I wish I was going to be around for Halloween one. I would love to do that one, but
I know that just sounds like a fun way to spend Halloween for sure.
It does. So thank you again so much, Daena. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you.
This has been great. Yes, we look forward to meeting you in person when we come to the show.
Yes, please do.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Well, you have a good rest of your evening. We don't want to keep you too much longer. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You. Have a good night.
You too. Thanks, all right, you guys, that was fantastic. So like we said, where everything is in our show notes. Follow us on all of the social medias and like, share, review, download, all of those fancy things. Email us, message us. We love to hear from you.
Yeah, if there's opportunities like this that somebody that, any kind of thing like this, like I never would have thought. This is the most random cool thing ever, so If you know things like that or opportunities, let us know. We would love to do more things like this.
For sure. So until next time, stay Heartland kind.
But Darkland wary.